Thank you again for choosing Trapp Cadillac Chevrolet.
Trapp Cadillac Chevrolet has been serving South Louisiana for over 50 years. That's right, 50 years. No matter how much Trapp has grown, you can count on hometown feel, friendly service every time you stop it. Our unmatched service and diverse Chevrolet, Cadillac, and pre-owned inventory has set us apart as the preferred car dealer in South Louisiana. We're also known for our outstanding auto repair service, changing your oil quickly and easy financing.
We promise to always give the most in your auto buying experience here at Trapp Cadillac Chevrolet in Houma.
Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and glad to be your host for this edition of Bayou Time. It's my pleasure to introduce two people from representing the Levee District. We have Angela Hidalgo, who is the Executive Director. Good evening. Glad to have you on.
Thank you.
And then we also have Mitch Mormon, who's a Project Manager for Morganza for the Levee District, and Delta Coast Consultants is his company. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us, Jacob.
All right. I see that Senator Cassidy had an announcement about some Hurricane Ida and Delta relief aid that was granted from FEMA. Angela, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what that's all about?
So this is actually some FEMA money that we had applied for, disaster relief funds for FEMA for some damages that we've incurred for Hurricane Francine and for Ida. So this particular announcement's related to Ida work. We had it's part of the $19 million federal obligation for H2 and H3 scour repairs from Ida. It also includes some of those flapgate projects that we've spoke to you guys about in the past at Cocodrie Floodgate and at Bush and Plaza Canal floodgates.
Okay, so this is all money that was actually released from FEMA. It's money that was already spent, but you get reimbursed for what was previously spent.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And Mitch, can you tell me a little bit, all of what goes into the reimbursement process and, how long that takes and how difficult that can be?
Well, I mean, look, Ida was in 2021 and we're in 2025 talking about Ida reimbursement. So, hurricanes are a big taxing struggle for the Levee District, to both prepare and do mitigation efforts. Part of this money is mitigation efforts, the flap. So that's almost like a new capital project that you're able to get through FEMA. So that's a good thing. That's not necessarily a repayment of expenses, but some improvements that we're going to do to alleviate flooding. And the flaps Angela was talking about were some things to let water out in case we have high water on the inside of the system. So that's a very positive thing, and we're very happy that money is being released so that we can move forward with that work.
All right, and that high water, you talk about that situation just because of the direction of the storm. You had to have the gates closed, but it may have came like you hadn't seen in Hurricane Ida, where you have that north wind coming in that can push that water.
Yeah, oddly enough, obviously you're usually not preparing for north winds, but a storm can jog 20 or 30 miles and we'll have a completely different scenario, so we have to be prepared for everything. Both Ida and I think Zeta kind of had a very similar trajectory where we got really severe north winds, and Ida for a very long time we had north winds for 5 or 6 hours, and that caused some pooling of water on the interior portion of the levee. So we've already put some stuff in at Little Caillou Floodgate. This will put some more of these flaps in Bush Canal and Placid Canal, because that east side of the system next to Lake Boudreaux is what's really vulnerable to those north winds.
All right. And Angela, let me ask you, about the reimbursement. Can you tell us, how that's distributed among, what's the burden of the Levee District compared to what's, paid for by the federal government through FEMA?
So most disasters are paid for at a 75-25% cost share, with FEMA paying 75% of the cost and the locals paying the 25% of the cost. Now that's 25% of cost that we don't get back. So major storms like Ida, for example, they shifted the cost share so that they paid 90% and we were still on responsible for 10%. So just for example, on any given storm, we could be millions of dollars in expenses and recovery work that we won't get reimbursed for. So that's something that as a district and from a financial standpoint, we need to have a rainy day fund, if you will, or an emergency fund to be able to respond to those emergencies using our cost share. And while we wait, like this is an example of 3 years later before we get funding from FEMA.
Yeah, and that amount, it could build up, I think, over, it could be up to $15 million or something. I think we were talking previously on how that, that takes away a lot of your capital projects that you maybe had planned for that you could no longer do, because that's something that's not just, funded already. It's something that you really got to plan ahead for.
Absolutely. It's become challenging lately, especially because right when you catch up from one storm, we seem to have another one.
Yeah, if you go back to 2019, you got Barry, Zeta,
Delta, Laura.
Laura.
I think you had 6 or at least that year that you had.
Right, and then Ida and then Francine. So, I mean, you're not budgeting for that level of activity. And, one thing's for sure is this levee district is not going to sit around. We've taken, those opportunities to improve the system while we're doing these damage repairs. But, I think we had $60 million worth of response. Some of that's debris cleanup, some of that is repair work. But for those 2 storms alone, Ida and Francine. So, as you mentioned, $15 million that we won't recover from FEMA that the district is out of, and we have to look elsewhere, to fill those gaps.
That certainly is a large amount. Now, as far as repairs, have they all been completed, or is there still some more work to be done?
There's still some more work to be done. We've done all the debris removal, and we're beginning to do scour repairs now. So yeah, we still have a little bit more work to do.
Okay, and the scour repairs, that's for when the wave action just kind of eats away at the levee, and takes away that dirt that you got to go ahead.
With Francine, we had 11, 12 foot of water and waves beating up on those levee systems, which did fantastic. But there's some scour that occurs on the exterior portions of the berms and the levees that we need to go back and shore up after the storm season. So.
All right. Well, we need to take a quick break, but when we come back, we can talk about, what's ahead in the future, what were the plans for some future projects. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned right here on HTV.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and we're talking with Angela Hidalgo, who's the Executive Director of the Terrebonne Levee Conservation District, and we also have Mitch Mormon, who's the Program Manager for Morganza in the Levee District. Mitch, wanted to say I did enjoy watching your one-on-one segment not too long ago. You did a good job there.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's funny you would say that. As normal with that, I always leave out important people in my life. So I just wanted to say that I forgot to mention 2 of my best friends in the world, Darren Hadel and Pat Ellender. And so I'm happy to take this time to acknowledge them. They've put up with me for a very long time, but I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed talking about history and my family and my friends.
Well, it's nice of you to recognize them, and it's nice of them to remind you of that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But Mitch, can you tell me, as far as the Levee District and the levees in Terrebonne Parish, I know it's a joint effort for a lot of these levees where the Levee District is partnering with the Corps. Can you tell us of some things that the Corps themselves are working on?
Yeah, so it's a strange time, and I know we've been on here before talking about it, but we've got a extensive lifting program that we're doing locally to lift as many of the levees as we can to 15 feet. But also a big part of Angela and I's time is coordinating, facilitating, and planning the things that the Corps are doing. So we're responsible for getting all the land rights and getting the pipelines and things like that out of the way for the Corps. And the Corps is doing a lot of work right now, a lot of design work. And thank God they're doing some construction work on Reach A, getting us coming towards Houma from Dularge. And that work is progressing very nicely. It's an initial lift. I know that they are planning an additional segment of that. Hopefully that'll be ready to go at the end of this summer. And also they plan on letting a contract to lift Reach F, which is along the Houma Navigational Canal. That'll be done in 2025. So we'll have 2 levee segments under construction by the Corps this year, which is really exciting news for us, to have that partnership actually constructing things on the ground.
As you said, it's good to actually see that, those projects actually being let out and the work being done rather than just the preliminary stages before that you get to that can take a little bit of time when it's outside your hands. But now we see some construction done. And you said Reach F, is that being raised to 15 feet as well? Or
so there are a couple of options in the plans. I think one is to 15 and one is to 18 feet. And I think it's going to be dependent on the cost when they let them, on which one they're going to go to. But we'll at least get 15 or 16 feet of protection on that with this first project. So that's really good because our goal is to get 15 across the whole southern part of the parish. And so that falls in line with what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and that's what I was going to ask Angela about that. The goal to get 15 feet, can you tell us, why that's important and how that's just one step and I guess the next step that you have to go until one day maybe you'll be complete, but you always can continue lifting. But can you tell us, what the purpose of going to 15 is?
Well, for Francine, we received the highest storm surge that we've ever seen and recorded, and some of those levees are at 11.5 or 12. So we didn't feel comfortable just waiting on those levee reaches till the Corps comes and lifts them. So what we've done, and my leadership through Tony Alford and the rest of my board has consistently done, is do interim lifts. So we've identified area sections like the H2 and H3 levees. We're pushing really hard to get that to 15 feet. While the Corps does their lifts, we're doing our interim lifts. And so eventually we'll get everything to 15. And then hopefully by that time, the Corps will have the funding they need to finish the remaining lifts, whether it be 18 or 22. So that's our main goal.
Sounds good. But, and Mitch, let me ask you, we saw Ida a few years ago. If that, would have been shifted a little bit west, obviously we're not where we need to be able to defend against that type of storm. How much work do we have left? I mean, is still a significant amount to where we can put ourselves in the best position to be able to handle a threat like that?
Yeah, so we saw in Ida, on the South Lafourche Levee District system, surges around 15 to 16 feet. On their southern end, where their levees are about 18 feet. So obviously the potential is there for a storm hitting us at the wrong direction to have that type of surge. So we have begun, we've lifted all of Reach G, which is the southern arm of the system from the Houma Navigational Canal all the way to Cocodrie. We're currently under the process of letting H2, H3, which would do all of Little Caillou going up towards Montague, to 15. We were able to put that to 13 after Ida with some repair work that was done, but we're going to go ahead and lift it all the way to 15. We're currently working on the design to lift I to 15. The Corps is working on a design to lift J2 to 15. We're gonna have plans out for J1 and J3 to get all of that to 15 So we have a pretty aggressive program to have that whole southern part, really all the way to Falcon Canal Road to 15 feet. And we did, well, I say Falcon Canal Road, but all the way to Doulards, because we did lift Reach E to 15 feet as well. So, you know, we keep going. This is all creditable work for us as part of the federal partnership, or maintenance work that we're going to have to do in the future. So, you know, every dollar we spend is creditable to that federal total. So it's a win-win for everybody, and then we get the immediate protection. We're a lot faster moving than the federal government, believe it or not. So, you know, that's why we're so aggressive moving.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for coming on and explaining to the public, you know, what y'all do. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.